to another episode of That's So HR, where we explore the latest trend and strategy for creating a thriving workplace. I'm your host, Jack, and today we're diving into the essential topic of boosting employee engagement in a hybrid work environment. With the rise of hybrid work, keeping employee engaged and connected has become a unique problem. And how can we ensure that for both remote and in-office employee feel equally valued and involved? That's a tough challenge. Joining us today, we have Celine Maslin, head of people and culture at RVZ, to share us some insights and strategy that they have tried at their workplace. So before diving into like the strategies, just kind of get things started. Love to kind of ask, how has the shift of hybrid work changed the landscape of employee engagement, specifically at RVZ?
Yeah, so it's definitely really interesting. I think the biggest shift has just meant that companies have to be really intentional about everything they do. I think when everyone's in the office every day, it's really easy to make sure that everyone's on the same page, they're getting the same messaging. But once you add that hybrid element, you just have to be far more intentional about getting that information to everybody and also making sure that everybody is still feeling as aligned as they would be were they all here every day. So I think that that's the biggest thing is you have to kind of change the way that you approach a lot of situations, just to think through that extra step of how can we get this message across to everyone in the organization.
Okay, no, that's really good insights. And then I was wondering, going backward a little bit, like why do you think it's important, or it's like is there's a need to build a strong and united culture, especially in the hybrid environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always important to have a really unified and kind of strong culture. I think that's always going to help a company succeed. But especially when you're hybrid, you have to really control the information that is getting to people. In any company, you want everyone to be able to rally around a specific culture, the company values, the mission, the vision, and you want everyone to be aligned. And when everybody's really rowing the boat in the same direction and working towards the same goal, it's always going to be so much more effective. So, especially when you're hybrid, you have to take those extra steps to make sure that everybody's feeling that. Can everyone in the company really point to what they're working towards and point to the values that they're trying to uphold? And so that's where really communicating those things is really crucial.
Okay, so communication is key, definitely. And also, I was kind of curious, with the rise of like technologies and AI being a buzzword these days, everyone been just talking a lot about it. I was wondering, like, what are some of the technology or AI tactics that you guys use to enhance employee engagement, and how has that been so far?
Yeah, I think we're lucky to have so much new technology at our fingertips. I think there's a tool to do almost anything nowadays, and that only makes being hybrid that much easier, right? There's different platforms like GatherTown where you can have a virtual office, and whether they're in the office or at home, people can still connect and feel like they're sitting next to each other. Or you have lots of like different wiki type resources, whether it's Confluence or other, where people can really easily access information instead of having to go track down a person and ask a question. There's a lot of like AI platforms, like different AI chatbots where they can maybe access information more easily. We're really lucky that a lot of the new tech helps to make the connectivity piece of things a lot easier, and just makes information and access to people way, way more accessible than it was before. So it definitely helps, and there really is a tool for almost everything. Sometimes it's just a question of choosing the best one and really the one that's going to have the biggest impact for you.
Speaking of like choosing the best one, I was curious, like, what's kind of your framework to choosing the right technologies, especially in today's landscape? I think there's so much HR tech out there. What is kind of your top three like criteria?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think the biggest one is what problem is it solving? I think there's so many nice to haves, but it's really being kind of critical and saying, okay, is this actually solving a problem that I need to solve now, or is it just a bonus? That's always the first thing that I think we're going to look at. Then looking at sort of the value for money, like what features am I getting for the price that I'm paying? And again, tracing those back to what value is each of those features going to bring me, and what's the general business value to having a tool or a platform like this. And then I think the third piece of criteria would be how easy is it to really implement this and actually become part of the natural flow. I think people can get a little bit exhausted when there's too many tools at play. So really finding things that are very easy to use, you can integrate into, maybe if you use Slack, it can integrate there or into some of your general workflows. I think that just makes it all the more likely that the tool is going to actually be utilized properly.
No, that's awesome. Like I definitely resonate with that, and that's why in Lightspace we're really trying to like consolidate all the tools that people are using into one platform, make it a lot more seamless and integrated. Especially we find how interconnected what one process is with another. Moving forward to the next topic, I think work-life balance, has been a big topic ever since COVID. I was wondering why is like work-life balance ever more important, especially in the hybrid work environment, and how do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, obviously, work life balance is important in any environment. I think some of the things that you see is both in person and remote have kind of different trade offs. I think when you're fully remote, sometimes the lines can kind of blur between home and work. It can lead to people burning out if they just don't log off at 5 and keep going into the night, and everything kind of blends together. Sometimes you lose that separation. But then similarly, with in person, there's the extra time spent to commute, there's costs, etc. There's things to look at both ways. Combining it into hybrid can be the best of both worlds, but it's really about, again, how do you make that work and make sure that you're continuing to acknowledge that everyone has a life outside of work, and how do you continue to make sure that people are confident and able to keep that life going outside and really have that balance between the two sides, personal and professional.
Yeah, no, speaking of that, I was wondering what are some tactics towards helping out with that? Because I myself, I would say I actually always forgotten to log out. Even back then, right now, I'm like a startup founder. Previously, when I was working, I think time just flies by, especially when you're so focused on some task. And oftentimes, you just like, you autom by default, you just go on overtime and then you drag and then you kind of miss out on like what time it is. And yeah, I was wondering
Yeah,
what are some tactics that people can kind of use to really help balance out that like work life balances.
it's tough. I think definitely flexibility is one thing. I think even when people are, in the office, I think we always remember that they have their outside life. We have employees that have kids. Maybe they have to pick them up in the afternoon, so they have to leave a little early and they'll only be in the office until 2. That's fine. Or, people have to take an appointment when they're at home. They have a phone call or something to do. That's fine. I think it's really acknowledging that we put people together and really treating people as people. Like, we want to trust our employees. You know that you have this work to get done, but you also have your other outside responsibilities. You should be able to kind of balance those two, and we're going to trust you to be able to do that. So the flexibility helps a lot with the balance. I think the challenge that we talked about of like getting people to log off and not burn themselves out is definitely a tough one. I think it comes with leaders also really helping to set those boundaries and really encouraging people like, hey, take your time. There has to be that separation, and really encouraging people to take their vacation time, making sure that they feel motivated to take that time away from work and recharge. Like that time away to reset is really important to charge your batteries, and then you can come back and do better work. But really just constantly reminding people and also showing the same behaviors. I kind of say for myself, I'm a team of one person. If I can take vacation, anyone can take vacation. So continuing to kind of set the example so that people know that it's okay and feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah, no, a huge shout out to that. Like, I think it's tough to be the only persons, like, especially you have coverage over different tasks. It must be hard for you to find like vacation time from time to time, but you did it, and I agree. Definitely, recharge is important. Kind of moving forward, I was kind of curious, like, in terms of like measuring employee engagement, like, what are some effective ways for you to measure that? And especially in a hybrid work setting, how has that measurement changed for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's always really important to be assessing, where are you at and how are you doing on the engagement side. I think the biggest and most important thing is getting direct feedback from employees. And there's different ways to do that. We do ENPS surveys, and sometimes we've done like pulse check or like smaller kind of wellness check-ins at the whole company level. Again, the key part of that is not only collecting the feedback, but now doing something with it and applying it and really seeing how we can put that in action. So that's always something we monitor. And then also really partnering and working with the managers. They have one-on-one with their team members, and really making sure that that feedback is going somewhere and that we're able to actually action it. They hold a lot of information about how their teams are feeling. So really working with them to collect that and continue to apply it. But the best kind of feedback is really hearing it directly from people. I think when you start guessing, that's where you can kind of go in the wrong direction. So it's really about, taking what people are actually telling us and trying to apply it as best we can.
No, this is really helpful tips. As we kind of like, that's the final question we have. I know it's short for today's episode, but as we wrap up today's episode on employee engagement in the hybrid work environment, I really wanted to extend a heartfelt thank you to Celine. Your insights has been very helpful for me as well as our readers of this podcast. Thanks a lot. And also stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, leave your reviews, and then we're looking forward to share you more episodes like this in terms of tips and tricks in the workplace. Thank you.